Hello, everybody. And, actually, I'm on your channel, Roger.
Yeah,
So, how's it going?
welcome to the Bitcoin.com YouTube channel. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, even though I'm recording, but you're,
Even though
you're,
you're
you're
too off the
hosting it.
park, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're so cool that you have people show up on your channel to interview you.
Whatever works. So thank you.
Yeah. So we just finished a stream on my channel where we basically just had a one-on-one conversation. We just bounced back and forth, talked about the history, some of your personal experiences and all that. So I had a lot of questions that we didn't get to entertain. A few questions, and I wanted to go ahead and ask them here on your channel. So pretty much ready, Roger?
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
Yeah, let's do it. So people are very interested in particular in the advisor position. So they want to know how many advisor positions, pretty much, if you can recall, do you have?
I think it's probably somewhere between five and 10.
Yeah, it's
I'd
not too
have to go
much.
back and count. What was that?
That's not too many.
No, not too many. I've tried to be pretty selective on that front. So um, before the ICO craze started, I think it was only a couple. So
I love
yeah,
how it was the ICO
the,
craze, not the
the way
crypto
it's worked.
craze.
The way it's worked
Yeah,
more recently too. I get pitched almost every single day, like because there's so I'm pretty much anybody that's been around, cryptocurrency for a while. Um, they appreciate my efforts in the space, so they want me to be involved in their projects, and sadly, I don't really have time to do that. But a couple of them recently, like we screen them to make sure that they're not an obvious, scam of some sort, and that it's a somewhat plausible business idea. It doesn't mean it's a great idea, but then most of them have compensated me financially as well to be an advisor there. So I
fair
think
disclosure.
uh, Zenfin was being asked about quite a bit. I don't know what their current status is, although we did review them when I agreed to be an advisor recently. So maybe I can have a catch up call with them at some point and see. But at the moment, I don't know what their current status is.
Seems like the most excited community that's around you is very interested in Zinfin or Xionfin for sure. So it'd be interesting to maybe share that kind of content with them. They seem interested. And FuseX, what's up with FuseX? What is FuseX?
So FuseX is a debit card for crypto to Visa, so you can spend your cryptocurrency anywhere that Visa is accepted. And I think they raised a couple of $1 million for you in ICO. I saw the card in person in Korea just like 48 hours ago. It was amazing. It was the exact same form factor as a normal credit card, but they had one that was a clear version, so you could see all the electronics inside of the card. So there's literally a battery that's inside this card that's exactly the same size as a credit card. They fit a battery in there, they fit a screen in there. There's buttons that you can tap on it. It's amazing in the exact same form factor as a credit card. And then even in the clear version, you can see the coil that goes along the back. So on a normal credit card, there's the magnetic stripe on the back. They have a special coil so they can program what information is in the magnetic stripe part. So when you swipe it through a card reader, uh, it can have whatever information they program right there on the magnetic stripe for different credit cards or whatever. And the fun part about it, we had a meeting with them about it, and they they were wanting Bitcoin.com's help to promote it and this and that and my help. And I said, well, the people that are fans of BTC, and initially BTC was going to be their default currency on there, and I pointed out to them, I said, well, the BTC fans today don't think it should be used as a currency. They don't think it should be spendable. They don't think that people should actually use it. So those people aren't going to use your card anyhow. Whereas the Bitcoin Cash people actually want Bitcoin Cash to be usable as money and want people to be able to spend it when they want to spend it. And so I told them, I said, I think that you should drop BTC altogether and just put in BCH instead of it. And they thought about it. And then the very next day they come back and they said, we thought about it and you're right. And so they've dropped BTC from their platform completely and added BCH in instead. So now BCH is going to be the default currency on these cards, and they're started in testing them internally, and hope that they're going to go on sale to the entire world before the end of this year. I think they were talking about as early as September, perhaps. So
Wow.
yeah, I think that's a pretty big, and they're not the first business to have done that. There have been quite a few businesses now that have dropped BTC and added BCH in its stead. And some of them got rid of BTC completely. Some of them have added them in parallel, like BitPay or Coinbase. But others have just dropped BTC completely. And I think we're going to see more of that as time goes by, because if BTC is not usable as money, people are going to stop using it as money. It's just that simple. And we've seen that happen with this FuseX card, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, yeah, you'd have to like just learn so much to set up a Lightning node, for example. You'd have to invest more as a business just to do that and learn more about it versus just using something already on the blockchain that works and has low fees and has
And
less potential for,
has nearly a 10-year track record of working incredibly well.
or are they just a company?
Yeah, so I actually had only heard of them. I'd heard the name previously, but I didn't know anything about what they were doing until like 48 hours ago or so. And so they have a token as well that they had their ICO with, and you'll be able to fund the card with Bitcoin Cash or their token. And you'll have to visit their website to learn all the details, since I only heard about it maybe 48 hours ago myself.
Cool. Yeah, that's FuseX again, everybody. So people are interested in whether you knew of any insider trading that happened at Coinbase when Bitcoin Cash was going to be listed on there.
So that's another example of like just the lies or the twisting of the truth put out by a lot of BTC supporters. So what I said, and I think I'm in good company with this, and the first person that pointed out to me that like insider trading is like a non-crime was either Milton Friedman or Murray Rothbard. Both of them share the same opinion. And for those that don't know who Milton Friedman is, he's a Nobel Prize winning economist, a pretty mainstream guy. He was like the economic advisor to Ronald Reagan. And if anything, like you want markets to be efficient, you want the market prices to reflect reality as closely as we possibly can. And the best way to do that is to, and the entire point of markets is to have people be able to trade the things that reflect reality of what's going on. So if you have information that something's going to happen, you should trade on it, because that makes the entire world's economy more effective and more efficient at allocating resources to what they're supposed to go to. And so, like, I think you would have really, really had to have not been paying attention to not realize that Coinbase was going to add Bitcoin Cash to their platform. Like, Brian Armstrong got trolled incessantly by the BTC core, like trolls. And like Brian Armstrong had come out publicly in favor of bigger blocks and all that sort of thing, and on-chain scaling is defined. And just like just about everybody that was involved in Bitcoin in the early days, like they're a fan of what was described in the original Bitcoin white paper. So you would have really had to have not been paying attention to not realize that Coinbase was going to add Bitcoin Cash. But did Brian email me and said, "Hey Roger, in 24 hours we're adding Bitcoin Cash"? No, I don't think he ever told me anything about any of that ever. I knew he was going to add it. Of course he's got. I've known Brian for like 7 years now. Of course he's going to add Bitcoin Cash, just from knowing what sort of person he is. But and anybody who was paying attention knew they were going to add Bitcoin Cash. Anybody who knew what was going on or paying attention knew that BitPay was going to add Bitcoin Cash. Anybody that likes digital currency is going to add Bitcoin Cash if they've been around a while. So it wasn't any surprise at all. And they just completely twisted around what my words were on, like I think it was CNBC or one of the news shows there. And I said, like, I think the insider trading is a non-crime. And when I say that, I mean that I don't think it should be illegal. Like, just like I think that smoking marijuana is a non-crime. People go to jail for it every day, but I think it's the police and prosecutors and judges that are the criminals for sending people to jail for smoking marijuana. And I think it's the police, judges, and SEC that send people to jail for insider trading that are the criminals. It's not the people that engage in insider trading. Insider trading makes the world's economy a more effective and efficient place.
Yeah, fair. Thank you for those thoughts. What about from this question here, which is, what do you think about Craig Wright being Satoshi? Any thoughts about that, or maybe who Satoshi might be?
I think whoever Satoshi is, wherever he is, deserves whatever he wants out of life, because he invented one of the most important things in the history of humankind, right up there on par with the importance of the invention of electricity or the internet itself. And so whether or not Craig Wright was involved in any way with the creation of Bitcoin doesn't really matter. But I like a lot of the things that he says, and a lot of the things he says I don't like. So like he seems to love patents. I think
I'm
patents
sorry, he likes what?
patents, like patenting technology.
Yeah.
So I think patents are an illegitimate monopoly granted by the state that shouldn't even exist at all. So I'm not a fan of patents at all, and so I disagree with Craig on that front. But when you see him talk about the economics of why Bitcoin is useful and that sort of thing, he's spot on. He gets it exactly right on those fronts. But then other times he doesn't have so much tact or politeness when dealing with people, and I guess I can be guilty of the same thing when I gave that guy the middle finger. But for the most part, what I like to do is, use please and thank you and be polite to people whenever possible.
Sure. Well, thank you. And would you please like to share with us, please, how you became a voluntarist? Was it maybe your time in prison that led to that?
No, I definitely didn't start out a voluntarist at all. It was just the more economics I studied, the more I realized that government intervention in the economy was holding back the world from being as wealthy of a place as it otherwise would have been. And when you start studying economics and you look at what's economically efficient, it syncs up almost perfectly with what is moral when it comes to the idea of self ownership and you owning yourself and you owning your own labor. And those two things just have such an incredibly amazing amount of synergy between the two. And so I was initially persuaded by the economic arguments, but more recently, I think I enjoy and like and appreciate the moral arguments that derive from self ownership and you owning yourself. I find those arguments easier to understand and frankly more compelling because you can understand those in an afternoon, whereas to study the economics, it takes years or decades.
Yeah, unity of finance and morals together inside of you. Yeah, for sure. Did you ever have to defend yourself in a street fight?
The last time I ever had a physical fight is I was attacked in junior high school during during PE class. I said that the class was playing volleyball, and I said the ball landed out of bounds, and somebody else said it was in bounds, which to me seemed like okay, we could both agree. And I was standing much closer to where the ball landed, like I was only a couple feet away, and the other person was on the other side. And the person started punching me in my face at that point. And the teacher broke up the fight pretty quick, so I didn't have much time to do much of anything about that. But so that was seventh grade, maybe sixth grade. It's been quite a while. So
Yeah, it can get rough for even guys in that time, for sure. Not exactly a street fight, but it kind of works.
fun story, actually, kind of related to that. So for anybody that's an MMA fan who knows who Frank Trigg is or was, who fought in the UFC a couple of times so a while back, I ran into him, and I've been a big giant fan of martial arts for a long time. Ran into him in a bar in Roppongi in Tokyo.
Challenged him to a duel?
No. But and this was maybe a decade ago. And to his credit, he'd been drinking, I'm sure, but he got real aggressive and wanted to instigate a fight with me in the bar. And I'm not stupid. I don't need to start a fight with a professional MMA guy in a bar in Roppongi. So I excused myself from the bar. But so I'm not necessarily a Frank Trigg fan. But Bas Rutten, on the other hand, I met in person in Japan as well, and he was even nicer off the camera than you see him on camera. He was a fantastically, wonderfully nice guy, and I was just some fanboy there. So thank you, Bas Rutten, for being so friendly to me before I was known at all to anybody because of Bitcoin stuff at all. So Bas Rutten, you're a great class A guy.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get you on the Joe Rogan podcast. That's one of the best ones. Have you ever been on there? No, right?
No,
Not at all?
I would love to. I'm a jiu-jitsu brown belt. I'd love to Joe's a black belt, but I would love the chance to roll with Joe as well. And I think we could talk about all sorts of things there. So I'd be more than happy to do that at some point. So
That's got to be the next one, man. I would love to check that out. Okay, Bitcoin Cash ETF, when?
it might even happen on the exact same day the BTC ETF happens. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see all three actually BTC, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash all at the same time.
Yeah. If they change that rule, actually, the SEC for the SolidX ETF, would that change it for everything? Make it easier for a Bitcoin Cash ETF to come out maybe at the same time?
I'd have
Uh,
to read more into that. I don't know offhand.
okay. Stats on BCC adoption amongst business owners.
I'm guessing they're still referring to Bitcoin Cash by BCC.
I was thinking it was either that or some Bitcoin Core project that the BTCC
I
project that they're
take it
talking
either
about.
one.
Might be a troll question.
I, I'm not sure. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's go with Bitcoin Cash adoption amongst business owners.
Obviously, it's happening. So I was on another call earlier today with another business that accepts both BTC and BCH, and he said it's so plain as day difference that all the BCH people are actually using it on their platform and using it as money, and the BTC people are like really hesitant to use it, and the platform supports both, which I thought was a really really bullish sign for Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, okay, I don't know what that was. Oh yeah, thoughts on Bitcoin Core, which whatever. Okay, Mount Gox. Remember when you endorsed them back? There was this video that came out, so we're gonna go back to that a little bit. What was the situation around that? Were you reading off a script? How did that endorsement happen? Did you know that they were possibly insolvent? Insolvent.
So I think this is a great example of another lie that's put out either intentionally and then probably repeated unintentionally by people that were influenced by the lie. But you see all these Bitcoin Core people claiming that I claimed Mt. Gox was solvent. And so in the video, I wrote the script myself and thought about it very carefully. And I made sure not to say anything at all about the solvency of Mt. Gox because I had no idea if they were solvent or not. And I didn't want to say they were solvent, especially when I didn't know if they were or not. So what was going on at the time, and I think I made the video, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 months before Mt. Gox collapsed. And at that time, there were absolutely no delays whatsoever with Bitcoin withdrawals. The Bitcoin withdrawals came out, and nobody was concerned about the Bitcoin side at all. They were really concerned about the fiat side because the fiat withdrawals basically weren't happening. And so I went over to Mt. Gox invited me over to their office, and I showed up, right after jujitsu practice. So I was a little bit tired from that, but Mark Karpellis logged into his online banking right before my eyes, and I saw right before my eyes they had, I think it was like 130 million US dollars in the bank, and like another like 20 million British pounds, and like, I don't know, 10 million euros, and I forget how many Japanese yen, but like it was a lot of money, right? It was a huge
Yeah, yeah.
amount of money. And I saw right with my own eyes that they had all this money in, I forget which Japanese bank now, like maybe Mitsubishi Sumitomo Ginko, or one of the major Japanese banks. And then he also showed me a letter from that bank saying that they're allowed to send 10 international wires per day, right? And this is a company that has like probably a couple million users at that point. So they're allowed to send 10 international wires,
Wow.
and they're allowed to send an unlimited amount of domestic wires in Japan, but for a grand total of Ichioku yen, which is about like a little less than $1 million currently, if you convert it to US dollars. So like they can send $1 million a day domestically and 10 wires internationally per day. Of course, the fiat withdrawal delays are being caused by the bank, right? Which is exactly what I said in the video at the time, which even with everything we know now that Mt. Gox has gone bankrupt and Mark got arrested and this, that, if you look at everything I said in that video, it was 100% factually correct. I regret having made the video because it made a bunch of people like trust Mt. Gox more than they should have because it turned out that they were insolvent and didn't have everybody's money. But none of us knew that at the time, other than maybe Mark or maybe some other people at Mt. Gox or the hacker, whoever they were. And Mark, he was incredibly irresponsible with what he did there. And we should be upset with Mark for what happened there, but we should also be furious with whoever the hacker is out there that stole the 600,000 Bitcoins, right? People seem to forget that there's somebody out there that hacked Mt. Gox and stole all this money. Let's try and track that person down and catch that person and bring them to justice. This has caused all these headaches for all these people all over the world. So the video that I made for Mt. Gox, I wrote the words myself. They were my own words. They didn't pay me anything. I regret having made the video, but I was very careful about the words I chose, and everything I said was factually correct. Never once did the word solvency appear anywhere in the video, and I was very clear not to say Mt. Gox was solvent. And that's another thing that really pushes my buttons when all these trolls on the internet try and claim that I said Mt. Gox was solvent, because I never said anything of the sort.
But why did you do the video if they didn't pay you? And what was Mark Karpellis's? Why did he want you to make that video? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so they were having a bunch of trolls on the internet, or I guess in this case they were right to complain about Mt. Gox, but they had a bunch of people on the internet complaining about Mt. Gox, um, and I wanted to help the Bitcoin community. Mt. Gox was basically the only exchange in the entire world at that point. They had like 98% market share or something like that, and anybody could do the math. They were making a fortune. They were making like, $1 million a day or maybe more. I forget what the exact numbers were at the time, but they were making a huge amount of money. So it seemed absolutely impossible that they could possibly be, insolvent
Yeah.
at the time. So I wanted to help Bitcoin. The entire reason I made the video for them is I wanted to help Bitcoin adoption around the world happen sooner rather than later. And it seemed like a good idea at the time to make that video to, allay the fears that people had about the fiat withdrawals at Mt. Gox. Nobody was worried about the Bitcoin at all. They were only worried about the fiat. So I made the video in an attempt to help Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good response. What about Dash EOS? Any thoughts?
Dash
Just three more questions after
Sure,
this.
no problem. Dash has a very similar economic formula to what made Bitcoin successful in the first place. They're trying to market as digital cash with fast, cheap, reliable, and private transactions, which is exactly what made Bitcoin popular to begin with. And then Dash has their interesting governance structure on top of it with their masternode things and millions of dollars of worth of Dash that can be spent every month to promote it. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So, and then EOS, I don't know enough about to have much of an opinion on, other than the way in which they structured the sale of their ICO was really, really clever in order to have it have this massive market cap, in which now they have a giant war chest to fund the development of what they claim it wants to be. But I'm not, I'm far, far, far away from being a EOS expert. I know very, very little about it. So, to quote one of my favorite economists, Murray Rothbard, to sum it up, what he said basically, there's nothing wrong with being ignorant, but you shouldn't have loud, vociferous opinions about something in which you're ignorant about. And I'm pretty much ignorant when it comes to EOS.
Yeah, that's fair. No concerns about the dark coin situation, the pre-mined with Dash. Did that affect you at all in your investing or getting interested in it?
It's mildly annoying, but at the end of the day, it works better as money than BTC does at this point. So
Yeah. Okay. Adoption by institutions soon for crypto, even though we're kind of seeing it already. So I don't know if that's just
yeah,
a
I'm
redundant
kind of
question.
already seeing it, right? So,
Yeah.
but
$20 billion hedge fund and Coinbase.
there's a lot more to come for sure. So.
Yeah. Um, okay. I think I know what they're talking about with this one. Does BTC kill babies? Do you,
No, and that's another example of the lies being put out by these Bitcoin Core supporters claiming that I said that BTC kills babies. No, what I said is that a lack of economic freedom kills babies, and it absolutely indisputably does. More economic freedom makes it so that more children are able to survive childbirth. And if you think cryptocurrencies have the ability to bring more economic freedom to the world, then delaying the adoption of cryptocurrencies around the world kills babies. And that's
yeah.
exactly the block size limit on Bitcoin has done. It's delayed the adoption of cryptocurrency usage around the world, which has limited the amount of economic freedom around the world, which has caused more babies to die than otherwise would have.
Yeah, I saw you put up a chart last year at Acapulco where that was the first time I heard your argument for that. You know how financial exclusion does cause people to literally die.
Die. It's a life and death
Yeah,
matter. That's right.
you had an experience that day too, like before you came to the conference, right? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah,
It affected you. You said you were kind of like really emotional about it right before you even gave the speech. Um, I don't remember. I remember it kind of affected me. It was an interesting story
yeah.
about
So
somebody, a little boy who had come up to you.
well, I don't know
Uh,
exactly how old he was, but he looked pretty young from his photo. And so a
yeah.
lot of like instant messengers, I kind of have had to stop using just because so many people I don't know contact me. And my IDs are generally something like Roger Veer or Roger K. Veer are the two IDs I use the most. But this person figured out my ID on Telegram and contacted me, and I didn't know who he was, but I try to be, make some time and reply to people. And he told me that he was from Afghanistan and that for his entire life, a war had been going on for his entire life. And, I've had a pretty darn lucky life growing up in California and getting to live in Tokyo and, traveling the world. And I've never had to live in a war zone. And so I can only imagine how terrifying it must be living in a war zone. And this guy told me, he said, this kid actually looked like I would guess he's probably 18-ish, 19, 20, somewhere in there. And he said his entire life he's lived in a war zone. And he said that he saw the Bitcoin Gospel documentary, in which I'm talking about digital currencies having the ability to undermine governments' abilities to wage war, which is absolutely true. And part of that's part of bringing more economic freedom to the world is undermining governments' abilities to wage war. And he said when he saw this video of me talking about Bitcoin, for the first time in his entire life, he had hope that the war could come to an end in his country. And I stopped and I thought about it, and like, it's really hard to even imagine what it could be like being an adult and in your entire life living in a war zone with bombs going off and people around you that literally being killed by drone strikes or whatever else and people dying, and thinking that that was just how life is. Whereas if you grow up in California, you think, oh, life, you can go skateboarding or go to the restaurant or go to the shopping mall, and life is, get Jamba Juice, and like that's your daily life. Whereas this guy's daily life is like wondering when the next drone strike's going to happen near where he lives, and if his mother or his brother or his sister or his friend growing up is going to get killed by it. What an incredibly different way to grow up. And he
Yeah.
just thought that was daily life. And he said that thanks to, hearing about digital currencies, not digital stores of value, uh, for the first time in his entire life, he had a hope that the war could come to an end in his country. And that, was really touching for me, that people around the world are figuring this out. And I have another story about that. So today I was at the first college in the entire world to start accepting Bitcoin for university payments uh, in Bitcoin. They did it back in, I think, 2013, and they had to stop using BitPay because BitPay is an American company, and some of the students at this college are from Iran. And so, thanks to the stupid U.S. sanctions, and the sanctions only hurt like the normal people in Iran. The people in, with political power, they're always going to have enough to eat. They're always going to have whatever they want. So like it hurts the normal people. But anyhow, this university has students from Iran that are using Bitcoin or digital currencies to pay for their tuition. They're adding Bitcoin Cash at this university now too, I'm glad to say. Um, but it was another example of how, Bitcoin Cash is, bringing actual economic freedom to people around the world, regardless of what country they're living in, or where they're born. So it's great to see that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's incredible to walk through an airport with a Ledger Nano S hardware wallet in your pocket and not have to declare $10,000. It really is really empowering. So,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, and last question: what's your favorite blockchain? I
My,
guess besides Bitcoin Cash, because naturally,
I'll give two answers then. So I'll say
yeah,
why Bitcoin Cash is my favorite at the moment.
yeah,
And the reason Bitcoin Cash is my favorite at the moment is I think it has the best shot at bringing more economic freedom to the whole world faster than any other blockchain does. So that's why I'm the biggest fan of Bitcoin Cash today. And if I thought a different blockchain could bring more economic freedom to the world faster than Bitcoin Cash, I'd be out there cheerleading for that blockchain. So what's my favorite blockchain other than Bitcoin Cash? Probably Zcash, because I think it has the second best shot at bringing more economic freedom to the world faster than any other Bitcoin blockchain out or any other blockchain out there. And so I guess it would be Zcash.
yeah, Zcash, where you can have both private transactions and transparent transactions for sure. It's also really cool to do. Well, thanks a lot, Roger. I know like you use the words economic freedom a lot, and sometimes I feel like, we can lose the meaning. We can forget, we can just gloss over these words, but you gave us some really good examples even here on these questions of what that means, right? Like allowing people to go to university and pay, right? Besides sanctions or, like even stopping war. That is in a way economic freedom because it's the economics that keep people trapped and enslaved in many different ways through the government. So, yeah, Roger, thanks for so much of your time. We did a stream earlier on my channel. I know it's getting late over there, and now we did another one here on your channel. Thanks for being so generous here, and thanks for what you're doing. Sincerely.
Let's close with a book recommendation, if I may. Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. And again, I talked earlier on the other video that's on your channel right now about how I really knew this Bitcoin community was like my kindred spirits. And Hal Finney is in chronic suspension, which I signed up for when I was a young man. Another example of this is I was listening to Gavin Andresen, the person that Satoshi Nakamoto turned over the project to, give another interview, and they asked him about what books influenced you, and he named Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, which was a book that also influenced me when I was a young man. So I thought, here's Gavin Andresen, an incredibly important person in the history of digital currencies and Bitcoin, recommending the exact same book that influenced me when I was a young man as well. And it's a fantastic book, and so I highly recommend it to anybody. It's available free online in PDF format, so you can download that into your Kindle. Or if you want to support it spreading, go. It's not very expensive on Amazon. Go and buy it on Amazon or somewhere else there. Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. It's a fantastic book, and it'll help you see the world more clearly. And by seeing and understanding the world more clearly, you can be more effective in your actions in the world to achieve the goals that you have in life.
Yeah, hopefully there's a link in the description of this video so that people can just click on it and make it easy for them. That's great. Thanks so much, Roger, for sharing that. I'm gonna check that out myself. And take care. Have an awesome day, man, and evening actually out there in Tokyo.
Yeah,
Take care, brother.
in Cyprus tonight, 10 p.m. Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye.